G'day, folks. Welcome back to another episode, Walk the Talk Style. I'm your host, Chris Janzon from eXp Realty, and today we're joined by a very special guest. It's his first appearance on our Walk the Talk podcast, James Stacy from Port Lincoln Eyre Peninsula. Welcome, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Chris.
So, mate, we were just talking about this. James is nearly 3 months into eXp now, so we're a little bit behind the ball. So we're going to go back to the beginning and just talk about who you are, where you come from, what your marketplace is. Give us the whole background, James Stacy show, mate.
Yeah. So I'm based in the Eyre Peninsula in Port Lincoln. I've been selling homes in Port Lincoln for 8.5 years, coming up to 9 years. With one of sort of the it was an independent real estate agency here. Very market dominant from that perspective. Learned a lot, but I was probably ready to start my own thing for a number of years. And, I suppose I looked at eXp as an opportunity, to do that without having to, just to do what I'm good at, which is to list and sell property, do you know what I mean? Without having to worry about what bills, who's paying what bills and doing whatnot. So, yeah. So, but no, selling on the EP, it's very, very different marketplace to what you see in the cities, the regional market. So I deal with homes of $140,000 for a 3-bed, 1-bath home, up to $2 million for some properties as well. So we've got a very, very exclusive market and a very low-end market as well.
Absolutely. And I was incredibly fortunate to catch up with James just the other day. I'm on the road, an Adelaide boy myself, and I was actually in Port Lincoln, and we caught up for a great catch up. Mate, you came from hospitality. You've traveled the world a little bit. You've done a fair bit. You own a business too now, mate, as well in Port Lincoln. So you're not just in real estate, you're invested in other areas. What's that business you got in Port Lincoln as well?
Yeah, so I own a gym here in Port Lincoln, F45. I've been involved as a partner for 2 years and took sole ownership at the end of last year. At the end of last financial year. And it's been an absolute breeze, obviously, and knew a lot about, or learnt a lot about business very quickly. And that's probably what gave me such itchy feet to sort of get up and start my own thing or do my own thing and be my own boss in real estate as well. So it was a bit of a no-brainer in the end. But I come across from Adelaide to Port Lincoln about 15 years ago now. Did all my schooling in Adelaide. Never thought I'd be moving to a regional area. Moved here and just fell in love with the lifestyle. Like Chris said, traveled. I think I've been to about 30 countries while I've lived here, and I think Port Lincoln is a pretty special place. I think most people agree that have been to the region.
Well, mate, pulls on my heartstrings, absolutely. But you're absolutely someone who's got a wealth of experience in that head of yours on those big shoulders. Absolutely, mate. Traveling the world, worked in hospitality. I think the numbers you said with me, you used to manage 120 people or thereabouts in the hospitality industry at the Lincoln Hotel. Done all that, had enough. Obviously, there's a little bit of a backbone to this story, folks. This is a true entrepreneurial mindset person here. I mean, obviously, he's worked for other people, but now he's invested into other businesses. He's obviously listing and transacting properties. You're also a local investor in the Port Lincoln region too, mate, with property?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Bought and sold property here locally too.
Excellent. So 8 years, mate, that kind of takes us to the tail end of the GFC market. So you probably started at the bottom of the market.
Yeah, correct. And, from a regional standpoint as well, I mean, regional South Australia hasn't performed over the last 8 years at all until probably the last 12 or last 18 months, call it. We were just sort of starting to see some progress pre-COVID. And then when COVID hit, it was doom and gloom. CBA were predicting 30% drops in home prices. I think it's been, a 50% swing the other way. So pretty phenomenal growth in, considering, I don't know how banked that you can get it so wrong. But it was pretty phenomenal. I've been dealing in a pretty tough market now for a long time. And so it's been good dealing in a very in a seller's market as well. So
we were talking, mate, the versatility of the properties that you sell, like you said, from 150 grand up to $1 million plus, from coastal to rural to local to lifestyle. You've got it all. But I think you mentioned, we'll talk about Coffin Bay. What was the average days on market there going back about 2-3 years ago? You were saying like 800 days or something?
800 days, comfortably in Coffin Bay, yeah. So, the sales were few and far between. There was, I don't know, 10 to 12% of homes on the market that were actually
Wow.
in Coffin Bay, huge amounts of numbers. But yeah, it was a fight to, your property was never in isolation. It was always in competition with other properties.
Yep.
Whereas at the moment, I mean, we throw a property on the market in Coffin Bay and you probably have 3 or 4 offers within the first week.
That's incredible
on the market. So yeah, and the buyer demand in that area, and even Tumby Bay up the other coast the other way, both about 30 minutes from Port Lincoln in opposite directions. And even in Port Lincoln itself, we're talking bread and butter stock that there used to be 40 plus properties on the market in Port Lincoln of the same sort of 3-bed, 1-bath, garage, carport type makeup, 40 at a time, and it was a beauty parade to see who could get the best one presented the best and showcase it. Now it's a matter of like getting it on the market and just filtering through. The last one I listed, I had 55 inquiries in a week, 31 groups. So I had about 70 people at my open inspection, 11 offers made on the day. Deal was stitched up by 5 p.m. on the first weekend. So it's pretty phenomenal with them. Where
are they all coming from? Like, are they local predominantly, or a lot of interstate?
Yeah, in that instance, yeah, like the 3 to 4 bed, 3 to 400K, which is bread and butter here in Port Lincoln of the 3-bed, 1-bath home. A lot of them are still local buyers.
Yep.
The sub 300 buyers are definitely investors. They're returning. I've just listed a property this week, sorry. It's on the market for 235 and it's going to get about I've got a lease signed at 325 a week. So you're talking, 6 to almost 7% return on investment. And for let's call it a pretty insignificant investment of money, 235K, that's a very good return of that sort of money. You're talking sort of commercial returns for not even a residential cost, or the cost of a block of land in most other areas. So it's a pretty good market in that respect. A lot of investor activity, and I've just literally come from an appointment. Then I've just stitched up $1 million home. So it's
mate. What a versatile world you operate in, from 250 grand, 200 grand to $1 million plus. The Port Lincoln region and Eyre Peninsula region that you operate has such a vast variety of style of properties that you can obviously represent. So, mate, let's talk about, 8 years sort of working for somebody. You kind of had entrepreneurial aspirations. You invested in a business outside of real estate. What was the light bulb moment that sort of led you to EXP? Like, tell us that story, how that came about.
But it was actually sort of probably hit me right when it needed to hit me. I think I was probably ready to leave. In fact, it was Christmas 2020. I went to Adelaide. And while I was there, you just had this light bulb moment. I thought, you know what? While I'm here, I'm going to buy a bit of gear, ready to set up my business. At the time, I was carrying still about 30, 35 listings, which, from my perspective, takes a long time to build up that sort of portfolio, but you need sort of portfolio regionally to make some decent income, selling 5 or 6 a month and really churning the numbers through. So I was walking away from too much, what I felt was too much at the time. Had I done that at the time, I mean, in hindsight, it would have been perfect to do it, because the 12 months I've had previous to joining XP were phenomenal. I think it was around October last year, one of the XP agents from Adelaide, Bjorn Kunzel, actually rang me up and said, I've got a client in Port Lincoln. I want you to sell a property for her. You're the best in the business up there. I've researched you. I don't even want to, shop you around. Price. I want you to price the property. Give me a fee. We presented it to the client together. Got the business, got the deal done. And about 2 or 3 weeks after that, he rang me and said, "Hey mate, do you own the business? You're obviously the key performer there. I thought you owned the business." I was like, "No, I'm just really I even used the word pleb there. I'm just a pleb." You don't feel like a shit kicker, but I was somewhat of a leader in terms of the agents there. But just was really looked at it and went, "I'm really going nowhere here." And I didn't have ownership aspirations there. I didn't want to buy someone else's someone else's business, and inherit their problems. Inherit some of the issues that the business had with it and whatnot. So I basically was looking to start up my own. Bjorn reached out. What are these model? I said, "Mate, that's bullshit. That's too good to be true. That can't be possible. Like how
exactly what we thought too, man."
how can they make money? Like, how can EXP globally make money on that? Like, where's the long-term longevity in that sort of business? You know, what's it going to be in, 3, 5, 7 years time? But yeah, now I've been working for 3 months in it. It sort of all just makes sense. I mean, you look at their share, what they're doing on the share market at the moment, and the revenue and income the company produces is just absolutely phenomenal, and they're only clipping the ticket very minimally from each agent, each year as well. So, but there's power in numbers, obviously.
Absolutely. Strength in numbers, mate. You're spot on. Scale of economies, 101. But so, I'm from Adelaide, mate, and I kind of know the commission split structures there across most agencies. Like, what's the norm here on the Eyre Peninsula? Like, what's an average agent on? Like, is it commission only? Are you debit credit? Are you 50, 60, 45%? Like, what's a normal deal look like on the Eyre Peninsula for an agent?
So I spent my first 5 years at a 44% split, which is, looking back now is almost laughable. But
and is that including super or excluding super?
That included super, yeah. Right. So it was and then that was on a debit credit type setup though. So there was a little bit of a security blanket there.
Sure.
About 4 years ago or 3 years ago, I asked to go commission only, and then no one else in the company.
This is a great story. I love this story.
So I started off.
Were you looked upon, frowned upon, like, what? You want to go commission?
I was like, why would you want to do that for? But I looked at the numbers. I was consistently writing, 300 plus in GCI, and I just thought, well, I want more of this pie to make it more worthwhile. I don't need the security of the week to week wage and whatnot. And when you don't have it, you always, I think you perform a lot better. And you tend to sell a lot more when you're not guaranteed that income, because you can't take a back seat. You can't take a back seat in your own career when you're commission only, because if you don't perform, you don't feel it when you're not performing. You feel it in 2 or 3 months' time when you've got no settlements coming through and whatnot. So it really does. I think we talk a lot about this real estate roller coaster, about income coming in, and then you have these quieter months. But I think when you're in the mindset of maybe not have money coming in, you definitely perform a lot harder. So just being
what you can achieve, man.
Correct. It makes it a lot more viable as well when you earn a lot more. But so I went to I was on a 55% split when I was on including super to a commission only, and that grew when I was on a performance. So it grew to 55 up to 100k. 60 to 300k, and then 400k at 65, and then it was 70% anything over and above 400k, which was a pretty reasonable split at that sort of level. But you had to hit 400k to actually get 70% of it. And again, this is like, well, it's achievable in a regional market, but not achievable year on year, because I was finding so you hardly ever sort of hit that 70k split. I wrote a letter to the boss and asked for which is effectively a $5,000 pay increase. I asked for a 60% split, so you just do away with the 55 up to the first 100. I didn't even get a response. You know what I mean? It was absolute. And now at that point, I was like,
I know my value. I know my value here.
I've got to do something else. I've got to move on. All I was asking, I was writing. I think at the time I was probably rolling at about 450k in GCI. And I asked for 5 extra K, effectively a 5k increase in pay, and wasn't even acknowledged. So at that point in time, I sort of knew where I was valued, like you said, and that's when I really started to look elsewhere at what other sort of opportunities come up. But then obviously, EXP presented itself, and like I said, it was almost too good to be true, but I can tell you it's not.
It's amazing how the universe opens up just at that point in your life. Bjorn rings you. Gives you your different colors, different brands. You don't even know each other. Normally there's this rivalry between agents of bugger them, they're yellow or they're blue or we're black, or we don't talk to them, we're against them. He just picked the phone up, had a conversation, gave you a seller. I'm assuming you listed it, transacted it, obviously, because it wasn't being shopped around.
Yeah, listed.
Business was done. And here you are 3 months later. So the biggest speculation you had at the time was, sounds too good to be true. 3 months in, is it working, and are you getting paid, and is there money going in the bank, most importantly, for what you're doing?
100%. Yeah, I suppose I call it fortunate, but unfortunate enough as well. I've had a couple of long settlements, so I've got money rolling through the account now. But like anything, you change your agencies. I was under a bit of a restraint period to start with, which I obviously respected that with the previous agent.
Yeah.
I dropped all my listings and dropped all the appraisals that I had in the system naturally, and then obviously people have just reached out to me. I invested pretty heavily into marketing in my local area, which is something I've always believed has been pretty important. A lot of people here in Port Lincoln still don't know what EXP was or what it's all about. So it was about affiliating EXP with James Stacy. I had a choice to go with James Stacy and completely brand or co-brand with EXP as well. But I've chosen to run with EXP. I think there's going to be strength in the brand moving forward as it becomes more and more recognisable across the South Australian market and across Australia as well. So yeah, people are starting to talk about it. The appraisals, like I was always worried about, maybe not getting called as much or to as much business, leading one of the lead agencies here in Port Lincoln. I've actually been called to more business since leaving than being there, because I think a lot of people sort of know people there and they sort of share the business around a little bit. But at the moment, it's solo James Stacy, so they give me a call. And it's people that I've never dealt with before as well, that maybe didn't want to deal with that agency because of a prior experience, which when you're working there, you don't even think about that sort of thing. You just think, you bleed the brand, and then you sort of have your blinkers on. But yeah, I think in today's market, gone are the days of having needing a big franchise name or a big brand behind you. People are calling individual agents because they want to deal with that person, not that brand anymore.
Yeah, mate, you're right. Like, you're very innovative with the marketing side. I'll just touch on that because not that I'm biased, mate. We're flying the same flag here, but I've recently driven through Port Lincoln, and I've seen a lot of signboards and your big billboard, obviously, as well. And a lot of the signboards of what I'd seen with your competitors are still sort of that 90s to early 2000s flavors, where yours just stood out as really modern. Just had that real savvy, just beautiful look to it, mate. It just looked classy, so definitely stood out. You're innovative with marketing to the point that I've adapted your signboards in Adelaide, as has majority of our team there, because it just had this real point of difference to stand out against, completely different from what anyone else is doing. But you're right, in terms of like that branding and that belief, often it's what's between your own two ears. Like I was the same when I left my former place. I put away some money for that first quarter thinking I'd come backwards in my numbers a little bit. So I just said to the wife, we're going to have to dip into some savings here to be ready for that recorrection for the first 90 days. But like I said, when you back yourself, it's amazing what you can achieve. And in fact, I had more people that reached out to me and said, we're actually glad you've gone out on your own and that you're not attached with that brand, because sometimes that history of that brand can, it can have some, I guess, not good, it might not be good with the consumer all the time. And you being a fresh new brand can resonate with people going, you know what, I actually want to back that guy in. I actually like the guy. I didn't like the brand. And that's what I found when I started out. And obviously backing and believing in yourself, it's wonderful. Like you said, when you go on commission only, you've only got yourself to prove it to and your family what you can actually do. Speaking of which, let's jump into life. So 8 years as a traditional real estate agent to now 3 months with EXP. We know your why, your story behind it. You've got a family, mate. So you're married, 3 kids. We've just welcomed child number 3, as in like within the last
baby Zara.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 12 days ago. 12 days. April 1st. It was
there
an April Fool's baby, mate. Yeah,
but this is the real deal.
Yeah, she's the real deal, mate. And we touched on this before as well, and I can't believe how I was at my other daughters are 6 and 8, or 6 and turning 8 very soon, and I had both of them while working with under the sort of traditional agency model. Very much like I can't remember what they called it. It was such a bad way, but basically you couldn't operate outside of the office. You had to sign in, log in. The connections were always crappy.
VPN access.
VPN, yeah. It was a horrible way to try and do anything. And, basically the only way to do business was to be in the office.
Yep.
Then you'd have, you'd ask your agents back there to do some stuff, and then you'd be paying out commissions and handing money out and, doing bits just to...
I'll help you, mate, but what are you going to give me on the deal?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Like there was very little, I'll scratch yours if you scratch mine type thing. Whereas it's what EXP is all about. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone's, I think it was just by chance, obviously, but while we were in having the baby, Chris was here in Port Lincoln and asked if, my opens needed to be covered and whatnot. And you just don't get that anywhere else. Like, how can it help out type thing. So, so being at the traditional model, like you always felt like I had to be in the office to make deals and do deals. Like you couldn't really work remotely. Now, today, right now, 12 days in, is the first time I've stepped foot in my actual office. I don't have a home. I have a home office, but I leave home. I've got another office as part of my other business, obviously. Yep. So this is the first time in 12 days that I've stepped foot in this office. So I've transacted properties. Like I said, I've just come back from selling $1 million home. I've done 3 deals while since Zara's been born this month. And this is the first time I've actually been. So everything is completely done remotely, which just sort of blows me away. Support's there, IT's there, admin support's there. It's all phenomenal, and it's phenomenal well. And it's just help you can't really dream of when you're in my position.
Mate, that's what it's about. 12 days into a newborn baby, Zara, and you've been home for 12 days straight, which I'm sure the wife absolutely would appreciate, that invaluable support in those early stages of a infant child being born, having a hands-on dad like that for 12 days. But, you've got the flexibility now. I'm sure after this, you can pack up, head back home, and you're back home with the family again in those really precious stages of life, which that's what's touching, mate, about this model. And you've hit the nail on the head. The support's there. If you need the support to transact, to get listings, to get settlements happening, you've got the virtual support. So it would be fair to say, mate, you're on the highest commission split of any agent on the Eyre Peninsula, or Port Lincoln, particularly outside of being a business owner.
Comfortably, I think I'd be on the highest commission split everyone outside of Adelaide, to be honest with you. Without anyone else working with this sort of business model, it would comfortably be the best split. You're talking 75-25 for your first 100, which I've already written. I've got that contracted, ready to go. So 3 months, I've settled that's in the system, ready to be settled. So now I know anything that I'm writing from, it's almost today forward actually. That basically I'm going to be seeing 100% off, which to me is just a game changer. You know what I mean? Like I think when I first sort of started talking to Bjorn way back in October, we sort of sat down and he sort of when I sort of said, let's learn a little bit more about EXP. Then I sort of sat down on a Zoom call with him, and the guy. There's a character, I don't know if you know Bjorn, but he sat down and he goes, oh, hang on. And he said, fucking hell, man, like, I look at your numbers, like, what do you say you wrote in the last 12 months? And I said, I would write, I'll finish the calendar year on about 700, maybe 750. That's the way I was tracking. I finished at 744, I think.
There you go.
Last calendar year.
Big numbers.
And I think as a rolling 12 months, I would have finished close to 800K in GCI come January. And I was doing that by myself with no sort of admin support, no one doing marketing. Like it was all James Stacy. I had admin in the office sending my story sheets to conveyances and whatnot. So exactly the same support I'm getting at the moment. But yeah, everything else was done by me. And we sort of sat there and goes, you're talking about the difference between where you are and where you can go with EXP is close to $4 million over the next 10 years. If you write the same numbers you've been writing the last 12 months. Now, you back that down to go, okay, so I'm not going to write 800 with, we're not always going to be in this market. You back it down to 600K and you're still talking $2.5 million in my pocket over the next 10 years. Do you know what I mean? And that's to me going, okay, so instead of filling up someone else's Riviera in the Bay, I'm going to have my own Riviera that I'm in parking in the Bay. Do you know what I mean? That's the way to look at it. That's the difference between this model and the traditional model.
Mate, that's the thing that, I try and help agents understand is play the long-term game. Like a lot of agents short-sighted, they're only looking for the next commission check of tomorrow or this month or this fortnight. Like let's start opening up your numbers and having a look at the next 3, 5, 10 years. So if anyone's watching this that might know of James, heard of him, or maybe you're an agent anyway, just to be very clear on the EXP structure. So we have what's called cap or capping. So it's basically where you're capped on your production. So you're not continually penalized on the more you produce, the more you continue to pay out. So essentially what that looks like under EXP is you're on 75% to you as the agent, 25% to EXP, up to your first $100,000 in gross income. Once you hit 100,000 gross income, that's it, you are capped. You're on then 100% to you as the agent and 0% to EXP. And that 100% is a pure 100%. There's no like 4%, 6%, 5%, 8% royalty or fee that comes off the top. It's purely 100% of whatever your commission sales advice or story sheet reads. Once you hit the 100,000 gross income threshold, you'll get 100% of that commission. And you're right, mate. 3 months in, so you're going to have 9 months thereabouts at 100%. That's pretty much what I've been on for the last 9 months myself. It is life-changing. When you keep more, you can do more. And there's no question about it. When you keep more of what you earn and deservedly should get paid, because you're bringing it in yourself, you're generating the business off your own goodwill, your name, you're listing it, and then you're converting and transacting that business. Why shouldn't you pay yourself more for all that hard work? So, so if any agents that might be looking at this, mate, whether they're in your area or they've just maybe been looking at EXP, you thought it was too good to be true, you've been paid. Because I remember when I started, mate, I was like, is it too good to be true? And then I trialed and I plugged in and I had it go and I'm like, oh, this is actually working. But then I remember when I got that first pay slip, I was like, shit, now it's real. Because when you get paid, like, that's real. I got the money's come to me now, so this is a real deal. So anyone's maybe looking at EXP that's maybe speculating, unsure, doubtful, what's some tips of advice you'd give, mate?
Yeah, look, I think whether you're 1 year or 10 years in the industry, like I firmly believe this business model is the model of the future for the future agent. I think gone are the days of working for someone else and giving away so much of your income. You know, I was probably out of 10 leads I was dealing with, seller leads, maybe one would come through the office, and it was always competitive business. So it was almost a lead I didn't really want to have to deal with anyway. It was like, you know, trying to screw me down on commission, trying to like screw down on the marketing, everything. But I think when people want to deal with you, they will call you. And I think in this brand is going to let you or allow that as well. But what I was saying before, like whether you've been in the industry for 1 year or 10 years, and whether you're writing 150K or, you know, 800K or whatever it may be, there's just more in it for you. I haven't even touched on, you know, the share programs and the, you know, bringing other agents on. There's just so many different, you know, revenue streams through EXP. But yeah, for me, like, just want to transact property, bread and butter, list and sell homes. And that's what I wanted to focus on. Now I can do that. I can still have my own business. And I can do that. I mean, there's two different, I'm sure Chris will explain it, but there's two different ways to join EXP. I can have my own business, run my own business, and you just have to list and sell properties. I don't have to worry about anything else. And that's probably what is the most important thing for me. So if you enjoy that, just the listing and selling process, you don't have to do anything else. That's pretty much what we do.
Mate, I was a business owner. I don't want those headaches anymore. I just want to list and sell, and I want to be around innovative, creative people like you that are the agents of the future. So just simplistically talk about the numbers, because the next session we'll jump on, this man will be on track to achieving icon status. So we'll talk about the shares in that session. We'll park it for now. But if you're looking at this video and you're an agent, I'll give you these numbers. Whatever you wrote last financial year or whatever you're on track to write this financial year, just minus $25,000 off of that. And whatever that number is, that's what you keep at EXP. Now, in the next session, when we'll jump on with James talking about Icon and his journey to being an Icon agent and the shares, you can get up to $21,000 out of that initial $25,000 you part ways to EXP when you're on the 75% split. You can get that gifted back to you in share ownership within the business. So if you're truly entrepreneur and you absolutely want to own something or build a pillar for future retirement, that little conversation we'll have in your next podcast series, because you'll be on track for that, my good man, will be a great conversation. But for now, just minus 25 grand off whatever you're writing as your gross income. That's what you end up taking home with EXP as a model. James Stacy, mate, absolute pleasure not only to catch up with you in person, 6'7", 160 kilos, if I'm right.
Oh, come on, mate.
He's a big unit, and he's got a big heart.
Impressive stats, right?
He's a big unit. He's got a big heart, and he's got a wealth of knowledge and experience. Thanks for joining us on this episode, mate. And it's been wonderful to learn more about yourself and your beautiful pocket of paradise in Port Lincoln and the Eyre Peninsula. A real special place.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, mate.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Bye for now. Cheers.